Some manipulators rescue you from problems they created until you can't function without them. Most of us can recognize obvious manipulation when we see it: the lie, the obvious power grab, the transparent excuse. We think manipulators are clumsy, that we'd spot them if they tried to control us. But here is what the research tells us. The most effective manipulation doesn't feel like control at all. It feels like salvation. I'm going to show you exactly how it works. The cyclical manipulation pattern, where someone alternately causes your problems and offers rescue. We'll examine how they engineer your dependency through manufactured crises, how they transform the person they claim to help into a prisoner of their own gratitude. This isn't just psychology. It is architecture. It always starts the same way. A problem appears in your life. Maybe sudden financial stress, a relationship falling apart, a health crisis. Something lands on your plate that feels insurmountable. You don't know how it got there. You are not even sure when it started. But it is there, and it is real, and it is consuming everything you have. Someone steps in. The person who just happens to know exactly what you need, who just happens to have the resources, the connections, the solutions. They swoop in and make the problem disappear. And you feel something profound: gratitude, deep, genuine, overwhelming gratitude. This is the rescue cycle, and it might be the most elegant manipulation pattern ever designed. The manipulator doesn't just create problems. They engineer problems at exactly the right difficulty level, complex enough to feel overwhelming, but structured in a way that plays directly to their strengths and resources. The crisis is custom designed, tailored, precision, engineered. Every aspect calibrated to ensure you need exactly what they can provide. The manipulator ensures you never develop the capability to solve these problems yourself. They create dependency through architecture, not force. You don't feel controlled. You feel dependent by choice. And that is what makes it so invisible. You believe this person is necessary because they genuinely seem to be. The prison has no bars because you built it yourself. Here is something counterintuitive that behavioral science has confirmed. Rescue from threat creates a stronger bond than provision of comfort. When you are safe and someone provides comfort, your brain releases a baseline level of oxytocin, pleasant. But when you are in danger and someone pulls you out, your brain floods with dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin simultaneously. The neurological reward is exponentially larger. Your brain registers rescue with the same intensity as escaping a predator, and your brain learns this person equals safety. Not because they are safe, but because they've made themselves the only source of safety. Your entire nervous system begins to rewire itself around this cycle of threat and salvation. The manipulator doesn't rescue you every time. They rescue you unpredictably. Sometimes the crisis lasts longer than expected. Sometimes you suffer more than necessary. But when the rescue arrives, it is glorious. It is chemically magnificent. This is intermittent reinforcement, the same pattern that makes slot machines so addictive. Variable reward schedules create the strongest behavioral patterns. The manipulator engineers your gratitude and then weaponizes it. Manufactured gratitude operates differently from normal gratitude. It is gratitude extracted through orchestrated suffering, gratitude that carries an invisible debt. And because you are a decent person, because you understand reciprocity and kindness and loyalty, you feel obligated to maintain the relationship that saved you. You feel like leaving would be ungrateful, betrayal, evil even, so you stay. The manipulator ensures that every problem that arises, they seem to be the solution. And because you've been conditioned to see them this way, you stop looking for solutions elsewhere. You stop developing your own capabilities. You stop trusting your own judgment. The gratitude becomes a cage made of your own moral code. Watch closely for this pattern. Over time, the manipulator systematically erodes your sense of self-efficacy. It happens slowly, almost imperceptibly. First, they help with the big problems, the ones you couldn't solve. That is fine. Everyone needs help sometimes, but the pattern doesn't stop there. It escalates into territory that looks like help but functions like disarmament. Then, they start helping with medium problems. Problems you probably could have solved, but it was just easier to let them handle it. You tell yourself it is more efficient. Then, small problems. Things you are perfectly capable of handling. But somehow, you find yourself asking them anyway, and somehow, you feel relieved when they take it over. The dependency has become invisible. Finally, you are not solving anything. You've outsourced your entire problem-solving capacity to one person, and they seem so willing, so capable, so necessary. But here is what you've lost: the muscle of solving things, the confidence that comes from handling challenges, the identity of someone who can handle their own life. The manipulator hasn't just created dependency. They've deconstructed your capability piece by piece. Sometimes, the manipulator doesn't wait for external problems. They manufacture them directly. A relationship conflict that conveniently requires their mediation. A financial setback that suspiciously aligns with them, reducing their support. A friendship that deteriorates right when you've been spending less time with them. The manipulator plants seeds of problems everywhere, then positions themselves as the solution. The manipulator plants seeds of problems everywhere, then positions themselves as the solution to problems they seeded. And because you trust them, because they've built a pattern of being helpful, you don't see it. You can't see it. The cognitive dissonance would be too much, so you accept the explanation. The convenient narrative, the problem that just seemed to appear out of nowhere. But it didn't appear. It was harvested. Here is the genius of this system. You can't complain about it without sounding ungrateful. Try explaining to a friend, my rescuer is actually the one creating my problems. They'll look at you like you are paranoid, like you are casting shadows on someone who has done nothing but help you. The manipulator has constructed a narrative of benevolence, of generosity, of someone who shows up when no one else does. The manipulator has constructed a narrative of benevolence, of generosity, of someone who shows up when no one else does. And you, struggling with the very problems they've engineered, look like the ungrateful one if you question their motives. This is why the pattern is so sticky. The gratitude functions as a shield, a barrier against scrutiny. The very emotion they cultivated becomes the armor protecting their manipulation from examination. Let's go deeper. Neurologically, what happens in this cycle is almost identical to addiction. The crisis activates your stress response, cortisol, adrenaline. Your brain registers threat. The rescue deactivates that response. Dopamine floods your reward pathway. Your brain registers relief. Repeat this cycle enough times, and your nervous system becomes wired to this pattern. Calm doesn't feel normal anymore. Calm doesn't feel normal anymore. Steady safety doesn't feel safe. You become physiologically dependent on the cycle itself. The manipulation isn't just psychological. It is embedded in your nervous system. This is why leaving feels impossible even when you intellectually understand what is happening. Your body doesn't know how to exist without the rhythm of crisis and rescue. Your nervous system has been reprogrammed. So how do you know if you are in this cycle? Watch for these signs. First, recurring problems that always seem to require the same person's involvement to resolve. Second, a growing sense that you can't handle things you used to handle easily. Third, gratitude that feels heavy rather than light, obligation mixed with relief. These are the first warnings that something systematic is at work. Fourth, an inability to articulate what is wrong because the narrative of help is so dominant. Fifth, isolation from other helpers. People who could solve problems alongside you gradually disappear from your life. Sixth, the feeling that this person is irreplaceable, that no one else could possibly understand or help the way they do. If several of these resonate, you are not in a supportive relationship. You are in a dependency contract. Escaping this pattern requires something most manipulation recovery doesn't emphasize: rebuilding your problem, solving capacity. It is not just about recognizing the manipulation. It is about reclaiming your agency. Start small. Solve small problems without their involvement. Sit with the discomfort. Let yourself struggle and emerge through the other side. Your nervous system needs to relearn that you can survive challenges without rescue. Build other support systems, real ones. People who help without creating dependency. People who solve problems alongside you rather than for you. Look for helpers who build your capability, not diminish it. Who celebrate your independence, not your reliance. These relationships exist. They require patience to find and courage to trust after what you've experienced. But they are real, and most importantly, interrogate the gratitude. Not to eliminate it. Gratitude is healthy. But to understand what is underneath it. To ask, was this help given freely or was it extracted through orchestrated suffering? Did they help you stand, or did they push you down then position themselves to catch you? This examination is not betrayal. It is the beginning of truth. The manipulator wants you to feel that without them you'd collapse. The truth is you'd struggle, yes, but you'd learn, you'd adapt, you'd rebuild. The prison isn't real. The bars are made of gratitude for problems you never needed to have. Remove the manufactured crises, and the need for rescue disappears. Remove the pattern, and the dependency reveals itself as learned helplessness, not permanent condition. Understanding this pattern won't just protect you from manipulators. It'll help you recognize the times you've used it on others, or had it used on you by systems and institutions. Because the rescue cycle isn't just interpersonal, it operates in politics, in religion. In any system that benefits from your dependency, this pattern scales. The world is full of people who will engineer your problems and sell you the solutions. Your job is to recognize when you are being drowned, before you start thanking them for the rescue. Watch for the timing problems that conveniently appear before someone's conveniently available solution. Rescue that follows crisis they had no reason to predict. Pattern recognition is your shield. Now that you understand this pattern, you have a responsibility. Share it with someone who needs to see it. Help someone recognize the cycle before it takes deeper root, and stay vigilant about your own patterns. The manipulator within all of us that wants to make ourselves necessary to others. Healthy help builds capability. Watch for help that builds dependency. Real rescue looks like someone handing you tools, then stepping back so you can build. Real help creates independence, not reliance. Real love celebrates your capability, not your need for them. If this video helped you see something clearly, share it with someone who needs to understand the cycle. Subscribe for more content exposing hidden patterns. And remember, the most devastating manipulation doesn't look like control. It looks like salvation. Stay sharp.